Our first speaker today is Élodie Lévêque. She earned her PhD in medieval history from Paris Nanterre University in 2020 and a master's degree in book conservation from the Paris Sorbonne University in 2010. She specializes in Carolingian and medieval bookbindings from France. She is currently an assistant professor in book and paper conservation at Sorbonne University and serves as the principal investigator of an ANR-funded Co-3D ecology project, which explores the history of French medieval bookbinding through 3D imaging. Previously, she worked as a senior conservator at the National Library of Ireland and Trinity College Dublin, as a research engineer at the Institut de Recherche et d'Histoire des Textes in Paris, and as a manuscript conservator at Montpellier University Library. Today, she will tell us something about Carolingian bindings and the use of wild animal skins. Élodie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation as well. I'm going to just share my screen. Okay, is it fine? Can you see it? I might move. Is that okay? Can you see everything? Should I move this? Sorry, I have a proper audience in the room. Is that better? Okay. I don't know if I should turn that down. Yes, can't see anybody anymore, so it's quite disturbing. Sorry, I'm just pretty bad. Okay. So I'm going to present part of a research I did with Alberto Compagnolo, who you actually heard last month. So we worked together on the same manuscripts, but we didn't really look at the same things. On my part, it kind of started a little bit earlier before that project. I'm just going to... It's not working. Okay, so I know most of you know how binding is made of, but I just want to insist on the fact that the bindings we've looked at are made of materials that we mostly don't use anymore. So wood, textiles, and skins. And what I was looking mostly at was the skins, while Alberto was looking mostly at the structures. So I'm going to talk about mostly Carolingian bindings, but as you understood probably from last month's talk, it goes a little bit beyond, and we have to talk as well about Romanesque bindings. And you can see here that we have the covering of the skin that is made of leather, but also all the different parts of the structure are made, but not all of them, but most of them are made of skins as well. So the sewing, the tabs, the end bands, and all these skins can be of different nature. So sometimes you have the vegetable tanned leather that's, as you know, very likely is very good for tooling. So in Carolingian times, we don't have a lot of those. You also have some alum-toed skins or oil tan. That's still a question. We don't always know exactly if they are tanned, alum-toed or oil tanned, because we didn't test them, but they look very similar, like white looking or beige or yellowish. And those are actually quite well preserved. And we have lots of those on the covers of the Carolingian manuscripts, but also for the sewing supports and for the tabs, for the end bands. Lots of the skins we could find were of that nature. And also, most of medieval bindings, that's what we thought anyway, were covered with skins from domesticated animals. So what we expected was goat skin, sheepskin, or calf skin. That's definitely the case for the parchments, but for the covers, that's what we thought anyway. So that was before we started with Alberto. We used to work on an ERC project called Beast to Craft with Matthew Collins and Sarah Fidement. And my colleagues worked on this 12th century glazed Gospel of St. Luke, which is in a private collection. And their main focus was on the contents and looking, so that's beautiful schema is yours, right, Alberto? No? Did you make that one?
Yes.
Yes. Stolen from Alberto, and I didn't even mention. Anyway, so it's the content was mainly, so the parchment leaves were mostly made of goat, sheep, and calf, which already is something very, very interesting to have this mixture of different species in the same manuscript. But what Sarah found out is that the cover was made of fallow deer or red deer and of roe deer. So the cover itself, roe deer, and then the straps and the small elements, I think the tabs were made of red deer or fallow deer. And she did ask me if I had seen such manuscripts in the past, if I ever had in my hands deer skin on manuscript, and specifically of that period, so 12th century. And I had no idea. So what I mean is that I never was able to identify deer skin on a manuscript of that period. So I couldn't say yes or no. I just wasn't able to say yes, I've seen it on this or this binding. So my idea was like, there must be some, since this one is, and how about I go and I look at all those bindings that really look similar to this one. So the way we identify animal skins in reading rooms is mostly by visual examination, obviously, because you can't just sample and do anything in a library like this quickly. So you would use, you have to be about like 30 times magnification, and you look at the follicle pattern of the skins on the bindings. And most of the time you would see like the calf that you can see on the top left, which has no actual pattern. The follicles are all over the place. The sheep has little groups that you can easily recognize as well. And the goat has like these lines with primary and secondary follicles. Pigs is much less common as in France. Careful here, because in the Middle Ages, let's be clear. So I haven't seen many in France of pigskin, one or two only on the French bindings. I think on the German ones I saw a couple, and anyway. And so the question was deerskin, and for deerskin I had a look, so I got one myself. This one is a little bit shaved, and I looked at the follicle patterns, and you can see that they're quite large. And you have also primary and secondary hair, and they're very, very, very aligned. So it's quite easy to recognize because you have very large follicles, very aligned with little spots in between. But in some instances, it's absolutely not possible to identify the skins, either because you can't see the follicles anymore because it's damaged, or because of the nature of the treatment of the skin, or because the bookbinder just didn't want to have a smooth skin and they would treat it so it looks like all velvety and smooth and you can't see them anymore, or because you just don't know how to recognize them. I'm laughing, but I hope it's a normal thing. Sometimes we don't recognize the animals we are not familiar with, or if you don't have the reference in your mind, or it's not always that easy to recognize. And sometimes as well in the Middle Ages, the patterns for sheepskin and goatskin are quite close, except for some that are, for example, from the north of Africa, or there it's actually okay, it's much more different. But in terms of genetics, they are much closer and it's more difficult to recognize. So there are limits, but it's always good to try anyway. So so I'm back to the project with Alberto. I was thinking then, okay, I'm going to go back to the collections I looked at in the past that looks also very gray, velvety at the surface, like and see if those can be looked at better and recognized. And as you can see, there's no follicle patterns visible anymore. It's not possible to tell. So I gave a few examples. They're all from the 8th, 9th, 10th century. The text. Alberto told you all about the bindings last month, so I'm not going to go back to this. So as you can see, like it's really hard. Like it's just a thread-like skin, and they're all about the same period. Gray. They all look like very similar. when you just look at the skin. This one as well, 8th century, also from Cambrai. And when you look at it under the dynolites, you can guess that they were follicles. Great, but you can also see that the hair side is gone. So it's not that easy to actually figure out where it starts and stops. That's from a little bit further away. So you can see them, but it's so difficult to see if there is a pattern or not. I can't tell what that is. And the reason is that the grain layer is completely gone, and you can see the junction between the grain layer and the corium, so the hair side and the flesh side, but you actually have just the flesh with the top of the corium, which is where you can see a little bit the end of the hair follicles. And on the photo I put on the left top left corner of the slide is actually a parchment. Deer skin parchment that was made by someone else. And you can see that naturally you can see this layer lifting up. So you can see the hair side, the darker layer is the hair side, and underneath you see this junction between the corium and the grain. And so you can guess the follicles, but you can't really see the pattern. So one very reliable way to tell in that case is the species identification with proteomics. And so that's Sarah Fidement. I sent all my samples to Sarah Fidement since she was actually quite interested in finding other deer skins. And she did electrostatic zooarchaeology by mass spectrometry, the same as they did. I'm pretty sure most people know about this, but I'll just show you again, just in case some people are not familiar with this project. But it's a micro-invasive technique that is biology identification anyway. So you use this eraser that conservators use, Stadler eraser. You rub the surface of the skin. So here it's a parchment, but you can do it with leather. You rub the surface of the skin, you collect the little rubbings. You don't need much, as you can see on the top right photo. And it's pretty much like it's completely electrostatic. So you have it's like rubbing the surface of the collagen, and then you get a few fibers. You can see it. There is a video, sorry, I'm going back. I've put the video link in case you're interested, where you can see all the process with the peptides, the enzymes, cut of the peptides, etc., etc. So you can see everything. If you're interested, you can have a look. It's on YouTube. Either you copy the link, or it will be, I guess, online later. Or you can just search by typing on YouTube parchment eZoom, and you'll find the video in the first few links. So when you rub your eraser, you pretty much lift up the loose collagen fibers at the surface of the skin, and you collect them very easily. I mean, there's other ways, but that's the easier way, and that's what we used for the leather. And so this I stole from Matthew Collins. I like it. It's from his class. Actually, it's a course for students, where you see the collagen fiber, which is made of little fibrils, and then the triple helix of the collagen. And then they are made of amino acids that you will cut with the trypsin, the enzyme trypsin. And this is what you are going to analyze with the MALGI that Sarah is using. And it's going to give you a fingerprint of the animal, like a spectrum that you can match. And as you can see underneath, you see all these different amino acids that are specific to a certain animal, and then you can match it to the animal that you want to identify. So that's the machine she's using. So for Cambrai, the results came back. So that's for parchment. I thought it was interesting to see that the parchment is still quite what we expect. So 38% sheep on the 8th to 13th century manuscript, and 62% calf. My favorites. So that's quite what we expected. But on the covers, so for the leather, you have a very, very wide range of results. But for the Carolingian period, sorry, I don't know if you can see because of this. Okay, yes. For the Carolingian period, most of the manuscripts are covered with deerskin or raw deerskin. Sometimes we can't really tell between the two, and I have a bit of an odd result at for the Vaucelle, but because the deer is coming out, we really suspect it is deer. But as you can see, it's mostly all the Carolingian manuscripts are covered with deerskin, but then it goes a little bit beyond. So then you can cross with what Alberto said last week. So that's interesting. And then after a while, you see it's mostly sheepskin or calfskin, which means that, but they look the same. So that means that the Romanesque binders were still able to make some skins that really look the same, but with a different species. So it means that it's not necessarily linked to the animal, the way it looks. So that means that now I know this, I still can't identify the skin with a little dinolite in the collections. There's no way. I have to send it for biology identification. So then we also tested other elements of the binding to see if we could see raw deer and deer in other places. We can't access everything. The bindings are in quite good condition for most of them. So we couldn't test everything. Like I would have liked to do the sewing supports, and it wasn't always a possibility. So we did a couple of whatever was accessible and easy to sample without damaging. So the spine linings for 3 bindings and 2 tabs for the end band tabs. And it was the same. Oh, sorry for the noise. Raw deer skin. Might wait 2 seconds. Raw deer skin and deer skin. So interesting. Anyway, we were exciting because it's the very first time we could actually tell we really had those skins. So what's interesting is that there is Bert van Regemorter, who I think most bookbinders already know or have heard of. She did write about the Clermarais manuscript, and she said that various authors inform us that in 774, Charlemagne donates forests to the Diocese of Saint-Denis to allow the monks to hunt raw deers and deers that would supply the necessary skins to bind their manuscripts. And in 800, she would give the same rights to hunt to the Abbey of Saint-Bertin. So it seems to be a thing that, because deers and raw deers are, I mean, you won't be allowed to just hunt them like this. And obviously, if you find them, you must be allowed to hunt them. So it gives you information as well on the relationship between the monks and the person who owns the forest, obviously. So I put, like, if anybody is interested, I put the original text and the source of the text, the Latin and the translation in English. But it's so like you would expect to find deer skins anywhere. It just we never really could tell where they were. So then the question was, are there, since it seems to be something that's known and done by the monks at the time, are we finding them only in Cambrai, or can we find them elsewhere? Is it only a Cambrai thing? Because the manuscripts in Cambrai come from the same area mostly, either the cathedral or like a few places around, but they come from the same area. And there are not that many as well. So it's a question, like, is it luck? Did we find them in Cambrai by luck, or are they elsewhere? So we went to see Orléans. So I give you other photos just to show you they look the same. They look almost a bit boring. Now you know about Alberto's research that they're much more interesting when you look inside, but the skins are really gray-like, and there's no decoration, and it's just plain. So they look pretty much like same style skin. So again, we did the same proteomics analysis, and we found 12 deer skins, 5 raw deer, and 1 sheep. So you still have to be careful that you don't just have deer skin. And again, it's not because they look like that they are deer skin. Unfortunately, that would have been too easy. and one didn't work. So that happens as well. And so then the question is, how about, Cambrai is interesting because it's like a different religious places. So it's the same area, but it's different binders, we think. And Orléans is all Fleury manuscripts. So it's very, very even. You only have manuscripts from the same place. While Saint-Amand in Valenciennes, the collection is in Valenciennes now, but the library of Saint-Amand have various origins. They were given a lot of, they were given a lot of books. The library was gathered with donations until the 12th century, and there were a few distractions. So a fire in 1066 because of a Roman invasion. And this is very, very interesting because the province is the same, Saint-Amand. So we don't have a lot of we know at least that, but then the origins are from different places, which gives a larger range of potential origin for the skins as well, or for the bindings. So there is a question though, is that maybe they were rebound after that fire in the 11th century, or they are original to the manuscripts. Well, that's Alberto's, you would know more than me. Anyway, but anyway, that was a collection to look at, and that was a priority for that reason, that maybe we will have a higher range of bindings. And those are a bit different. I don't know if you can see well on your screens, but those are a bit decorated, which is quite cool. Not as, especially on such a velvety skin. But they otherwise look the same. Grayish color. This one is nice as well. It has lovely decoration, the toolings on the surface. It's really pretty. And again, we got deer, roe deer, deer, roe deer, deer, roe deer, 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 deer. And one is calf. So you still have to be careful. And I specified it that the 167 is Romanesque in the structure. The manuscript is from the 9th century, but the binding is 12th century. So that's also interesting. Well, I think it was 12. I don't know. Sorry, I just put Romanesque. We don't really know, maybe. Yeah, anyway, it's at least 12th century. And same for the 498, probably 12th century, and the 502. So you see, it seems to be an overlap between the Carolingian and the Romanesque. That doesn't just stop. But in the Carolingian, on the Carolingian manuscripts, they're all deerskin. Anyway, why? Good question. So when you look at the overall results, actually that map I should have put earlier because you can see better why it was interesting. But you see Fleury is further down, and Saint-Amand and Cambrai are quite close. But the collection of Saint-Amand is more. There is a bigger variety in the origin of the manuscripts. So as you can see, you get a large number of deer skins, large enough number of roe deer, and a very short percentage of domesticated animals. So that's very interesting because it really tells you that it seems to be mostly that those skins are mostly roe deer and deer skins. And I think I know why. I'll show you why. But you can still make them with domesticated animals. And my understanding of this, but I might be wrong, could be proven wrong in the future, is that it was probably to copy the aesthetic of the roe deer and the roe deer skin, that they would make those other skins, but probably a different way. So that was one of my suspicion. And the other one was maybe they're oil tanned, and maybe oil tannage makes the skin very flexible and velvety, and maybe you get you lose the hair layer, and then that's what it does. So it's a good question. So I tried, but I tried with alum toad. So that we don't know yet if it has alum or not in the skin. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. I thought it was good to try to see alum toad skins first and see if it is because if the roe deer skin, if the nature of the skin, if the species is the reason why it's all velvety at the surface, or if it's the tannage. So I tried with alum, which makes the skin a bit less flexible. So in the, I think I've put the recipe afterwards, sorry, I'll check. So but you just need alum you need some fat. So I put eggs and oil, flour, and there's a few things you can mix up in the mixture. And I found all this in old recipes. So they're mostly 15th century recipes. We don't really have anything before that, but we do find examples of recipes, late medieval recipes, that gives you an idea of how it would have been made. So that's all we could find. So we tried, but then it's not very easy to reproduce. So it was like 2-3 years of trying. Anyway, but as you can see, you need like as much alum as you think necessary. So that's not really easy. Little wheat flour, okay, 1 or 2 eggs. Bran is probably for the pH, we think. Then you need to wait for 3 days and dry it in the shade. That's super important. And then beat it with a hammer. So that's what we did. It's going fast, sorry, but that's pretty much what you do. It's quite simple. If you ever want to try, it's not that difficult. But what's the most important, that once you do all this, you let it dry, and it's quite stiff. So you need to do it like what we call skating. I mean, they call it beat it with the hammer. I'm not sure. It didn't seem to work. We tried. So I'm not sure the translation is correct. It's a mixture between Old Italian and Latin. And sometimes we're not sure, but it didn't work for us. So we ended up discussing with some leather makers to see how they do it. And it's mostly stretching with what they call palissonnage in French, and skating in English. And we used some wood stick, but you can use a stone, you can use anything as long as you stretch it with movement. And I think the friction is actually helping the oil to tan the skin. It's oxidizing the oil, and it really helps. And this is super important. So you really have to wait, and then you really have to work the skin after you humidify it. And when you do this, the hair side, you have to put that picture, I guess it's famous enough. Anyway, the flesh detach automatically with the deer skin. So you don't really have to do anything. You just do you tan your skin, and you scrape the skin, and the hair side just detach. So it's super. It seems to be a thing with deer skin anyway. So I put back my parchment here, but I could actually should take photos under the microscope with the leather. But I think it's just so soft. It's so elastic that it just does it automatically. So you end up with a very velvety skin. And you kind of have to help it a little bit at the end. So I still don't know the answer of why does it do this? Is it just the skin itself? I think so. I think they use those skins first, and it looked very soft and lovely, like gloves and stuff. And then probably use different species, but try to make it look the same. So probably sanded the surface. Maybe we could actually find that out with imaging. See if we find traces of the sanding. Anyway, the thing is, so that's a talk. I already talked about this in the past. So some people probably heard this story already. So sorry, but the thing is, it's quite linked to the fact that some of the catalogs in libraries describe Romanesque bindings, so a bit like later bindings, 12th century, 13th century bindings, as being covered with deerskin, but they're not. But it's interesting to see that the description is not on the right dates. So this is the research I did before. That was Romanesque bindings from Clairvaux, but I looked at other bindings, and those were described as deerskins. And that's, what I was telling you earlier, that sometimes you just can't recognize the skin because you have no clue what you're looking at, but someone else who knows would have recognized. So that's what happened to me. So that's again Van Regemorter, who's talking about the Clermarais bindings, which are very, very similar. And so in the catalogs, they think it's boar or wolf skin. And then in the 20th century, they described those skins are deer and roe deer, and Van Regemorter, who had no tools to check, just being used to look at other, maybe other manuscripts or whatever, she really thought it was deer or roe deer. She excluded the other options. And those skins were tested in the National Museum of Natural History in Paris. And but they only sent little fragments of the hair, completely detached from the skin, which makes it really, really hard to identify under the microscope, because you can't. It's really hard to identify just the hair. You need to see how it is on the skin to really be sure. And they thought it was maybe calf or horse, definitely no deer or boar, and they recommended to do DNA to be sure, because they were a bit stuck. So like this is, you can't see here. I don't know if it's the same for everyone. I don't know if you can see the caption of my photo on the top left corner, but it is an artist book that's at the Folger in Washington, D.C. And it is covered with deer skin, and you would really think that those brown skins are deer skin. But when you look at the hair under with a genolite, you can tell it's really not the same as the Clairvaux manuscript. You see that it's really large. It has this very specific scale. It's quite large, wide, and as I told you earlier, you can see the primary hair and then small follicles, small hair, but they are not coming out of the same exit. While the skin from Clairvaux, you see only one exit for several follicles, and you can see the large one with very small ones exiting from the same. It's quite flat, so it's not deer skin. 5 minutes, so I'll go quick because I've already, some people probably know about it. But the brown color of the skin comes mostly for the fat layer on top. The hair is actually very light in color, unpigmented, or very little pigmentation, and so you can see this structure of the large primary hair, quite flat, and then the small rounded secondary hair coming from the same exit. And so not recognized because I don't know what I'm looking at. So we looked a lot. This is a table with all the results, but initially we did only eZooM. Sarah did eZooM first, and it came out as being harbor, like pinnipeds, so seal skins. And then with DNA we could know more, but it's not my point today. But at least we knew it was seal skins in Clairvaux at the time. And I didn't know what I was looking at, so I was an idiot and I couldn't figure it out, but I wasn't the only one. Clearly there's no words in Old French for, I actually checked in Flemish as well. It doesn't seem to exist at the time either. I have a colleague who helped me on this. And you can see that the visual representation of the seal is not quite a given. They don't really know what the hell it is. So we think they had no idea. They were working with sealskins to cover the books, or maybe they knew, but they had no idea what it looked like. So it wasn't a thing we had in France. And then I looked everywhere where it was described as deer skin or boar skin or question mark. So you can see there are a lot in the area of Flanders, anyway. So Bruges, Clairvaux, Vauclair, Clermarais, Cambron. Dune, and then a little bit in the UK, in the north. Biland, Rivaux, Fontaines are at the top. You can't see here, but sorry, you have to trust me. Over there. Anyway, so, and when you look at it, they're all sisters of, daughters of Clairvaux, sorry. So there might be a link there. But anyway, they're not deer skin, that's for sure. And looking at it, the DNA told us it was coming as far as Greenland. The skins were originated from Greenland. And you look at it and it's like the path to the trade markets in Europe. You see the Hanseatic routes, but they're not mentioned in the records of the Hanseatic trade routes. But you can see the Vikings are going all that way, going down to France and passing by all these areas. And when you look also at, we have data, archaeological data on ivory that was circulating at the time, and it really matches. And as far as we can tell, they are the eldest archaeological skins, seal skin that we have left. So that's quite exciting, not only for bookbinders or book historians, but also for archaeologists who are interested in it. So yeah, so I have a very short conclusion, but what I mean is like we really know, we know actually quite little about what skins were used in the Middle Ages and how they were using wild animal skins and why. And the reason why is because we so far were not always able to identify the skins by eye. And we have to use tools that we didn't have in the past, so we don't have a lot of data. And so we know very, very little about deer skin, even though we say it was used, we don't always know for certain. And that's the very good thing about biocodicology is we can actually tell a lot more now. So thank you for your attention. I'd like to thank very much Alberto, who worked on this a lot with me, and Matthew Tisdale, who did a lot of the samplings, Sarah Fidement, Matthew Collins, Martha, who did so much of the analysis, the peptides identifications, and Lise was a vet who helped me as well with the deer skin and the seal skins. Thank you very much for your attention.